Stop letting wood chips rot. Make Compost 10x faster with this method. 55+ gardening. Hello there, friends. With Paul again, and I'm so glad you're here with me on the Meaningful Living channel. It's always a joy to be here, especially with you, seasoned gardeners, who know the peace of early mornings in the garden, the smell of fresh soil, and the quiet satisfaction of watching something grow under your care. If you're anything like me, you've got a few aches and creaky knees, but that doesn't stop your hands from getting dirty. That love for gardening. It only grows stronger with age. Now, let me ask you, have you ever stared at a big, rough pile of old wood chips in your yard and thought, what am I supposed to do with this? You're not alone. I used to think the same until I found a method that changed everything. Today, on Meaningful Living, we're unlocking a simple way to turn that pile into rich compost fast. So, grab your tea, settle in, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any tips made just for gardeners like us. Part 1. Why most gardeners get wood chips all wrong. You know, for the longest time, I did what so many of us do. I'd collect a pile of wood chips after trimming branches or clearing the yard. I'd toss them into a corner behind the shed and just leave them. I figured nature would take care of it eventually. Sound familiar? Maybe you've done the same. We've got good intentions, but let's be honest, we've also got bad knees and a dozen other projects going on in the garden. 6 months later, I'd go back expecting compost, and what did I find? A dry, crusty pile that looked just as stubborn as the day I dumped it. That's when it hit me, wood chips don't break down on their own, at least not anytime soon. See, they're packed with carbon, which is great, but they're missing the secret sauce, nitrogen. Without it, those chips just sit there like a stalled engine with no spark. And as gardeners in our golden years, we've learned that time is precious. We want results we can see, touch, and use before next spring rolls around. So today, let me show you what finally worked for me. Not only will it save you months of waiting, but it might also make you fall in love with composting all over again. Part 2. The simple composting trick that actually speeds things up. Now here's where things get exciting, because once I learned this, I never looked at a pile of wood chips the same way again. It's called the hot composting method, and no, it's not fancy or complicated. In fact, it's something any of us can do, even if we've got a few more gray hairs than garden helpers these days. Hot composting is like giving your pile a good, strong cup of coffee. Instead of waiting months for things to slowly rot, you're building a mix that heats up fast and gets the microbes buzzing. The trick is in the balance. You want a good mix of carbon from the wood chips and nitrogen from green materials, like grass clippings, composting with grass clippings, veggie scraps, or even coffee grounds. Once that pile is built right and stays moist with good airflow, the inside can reach compost pile temperatures between 130 and 160 degrees Fahrenheit, 54 to 71 degrees Celsius, in just a day or two. Now I know what you're thinking. Is that safe? Absolutely. That heat is what makes the magic happen. It breaks everything down quicker, yes, but it also kills weed seeds and harmful bacteria. You're not just creating compost, you're creating clean, powerful soil that your plants will thrive in. And isn't that what we all want? A garden that gives back without all the waiting and wondering. Something we can see working right before our eyes, just like the good old days, only smarter. It's truly a fast composting system. Part 3. What you really need to mix with wood chips for perfect compost. Alright, now that we've got our minds wrapped around the idea of hot composting, let's get down to the heart of it. What exactly do we toss into that pile? Because as much as we'd like to believe a heap of wood chips will transform all on its own, it simply won't. It needs a little help, and that's where your kitchen and garden scraps come in. Wood chips are a great start. They're your carbon base. But on their own, they're like dry toast without butter. What you need is nitrogen. That's the fuel that gets those microbes moving. Think of it as the protein in the compost diet. Now here's the good part. Most of us already have the ingredients right in our backyard composting. A fresh bag of grass clippings after a mow? Perfect. A scoop of used coffee grounds from the morning pot? Even better. Garden prunings, green leaves, soft veggie scraps. all wonderful. Just steer clear of meat and dairy, since those can attract pests and slow things down. And yes, here's one that might raise some eyebrows: diluted urine. I know it sounds odd, but when mixed with water at a 10-to-1 ratio, it's one of the most nitrogen-rich materials you can add. Us older folks, we tend to chuckle at these things, but trust me, it works wonders. It helps maintain the nitrogen-carbon compost balance. And don't forget the moisture. This part is easy to overlook. Your compost pile should feel like a sponge that's been wrung out, not dripping, but definitely damp. If it's too dry, nothing breaks down. If it's too wet, it turns into a soggy mess. But get it just right, that's when the magic starts. It's a little bit science, a little bit old-fashioned common sense, and something any of us can do no matter our age. This is the essence of organic composting. Part 4. How to build your compost pile the right way, just like a garden cake. Now that we've got the right ingredients, it's time to build our pile. And here's where the fun really begins. I like to think of it as building a garden cake, not the kind you eat, of course, but one that'll feed your soil better than any store-bought fertilizer ever could. Start with a nice layer of wood chips. How to compost wood chips. Then, follow with a layer of green materials, those nitrogen-rich scraps we talked about. After that, sprinkle in a bit of garden soil. This isn't just for weight, it adds beneficial microbes to kickstart the breakdown. Think of it like sourdough starter for your compost. Repeat this pattern until the pile stands about 3 to 4 feet, 90 to 120 centimeters, tall. That's a good size, not so big that it's hard to manage, but not too small either. And here's something important: water each layer as you go. The goal is moisture, not soaking damp, like a wrung-out washcloth. That's the sweet spot. Now, don't be shy about giving the pile a good mix once it's built. Composting loves air. Those little pockets of oxygen help everything break down faster and more evenly. Within the first 24 hours, you'll want to check the temperature at the center of the pile. If it's climbing above 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 49 degrees Celsius, you're doing just fine. If not, just add a little more green material and give it another turn. It's a little like baking: adjust as you go, trust your senses, and enjoy the process. After all, as older gardeners, gardening for older adults, we've learned to appreciate the rhythm of things. There's something peaceful in knowing we're not just cleaning up the yard, we're creating life from what once looked like waste. This is an easy composting tutorial. Part 5. How to keep your compost pile cooking like a champ. Once you've got that pile built and heating up, the key is to keep that momentum going. And let me tell you, this part reminds me a lot of checking on a good stew. You don't want to walk away for too long, or it might lose its magic. For the first week, your compost pile needs a little TLC. Every couple of days, grab your pitchfork, slow and steady wins the race, and give that pile a turn. Not too hard on the back if you take your time, and it's a good excuse to get outside and breathe in that earthy smell. Check the temperature while you're at it. Is it still warm inside? That's your sign everything's still humming along. Now, if it starts to cool down or feel dry to the touch, don't worry. That just means the microbes are asking for a little more moisture or a touch more green material. Add what's needed, mix it up gently, and you're back in business. It might sound like extra work, but for us older folks who love our gardens, there's something really soothing about this rhythm. It's like the pile is talking to you in its own quiet way, and when you listen, it rewards you with the richest compost you've ever seen. Be sure to avoid these composting mistakes to avoid. Part 6. Letting nature do the finishing touch with fungi. By the time you've reached about day 21, your pile has gone through its hot and heavy lifting phase. It's been steaming, turning, breaking things down like a champ. But now it's time to let nature step in and take it to the next level. This is the quiet stage where fungi roll up their sleeves and go to work. You don't need to stir or add anything fancy, just let the pile rest. No more turning, no more fussing. It's kind of like letting bread dough rise. There's nothing more for you to do but trust the process. This stage reminds me a bit of aging a good bottle of wine or letting soup sit overnight. The flavors deepen, the structure settles, and what you get in the end is something rich, stable, and full of life. And you know, us older gardeners, senior gardening tips, we understand the beauty of patience, especially when we know it pays off. This is a great tip for composting for seniors. Now, if you'd like to give your compost a little friendly nudge, you can sprinkle in some forest floor soil or break up a few old rotting logs. These bring in fungal spores that kickstart that final transformation. After that, let the pile sit quietly for 1 to 2 months. You don't need to hover, just give it time and let nature's quiet workers finish the job. It's peaceful, it's low effort, and it's wonderfully rewarding. Just the kind of rhythm many of us enjoy most in this season of life. Part 7. Giving your compost one last boost before it hits the garden. Now, here's a little trick I've picked up over the years, and it's one I always recommend to my fellow gardeners, especially those of us who like to make every effort count. Just a few weeks before you plan to use your compost, it's time to give it one last boost. Think of it as waking up your compost from a long, restful nap. After sitting quietly for a month or two, the pile is full of potential but a little sleepy. So, what do? We stir in a fresh wave of green material. A wheelbarrow of grass clippings, some fresh veggie tops, or even leftover plant cuttings will do the trick. If you've got access to it, a splash of seaweed extract works wonders. And here's a fun one: if you're someone who presses apples in the fall, don't toss that pomace. It's packed with sugars and nutrients that microbes absolutely love. This little act reawakens the biological activity, brings in a new wave of nitrogen, and gets the compost lively and active again. It's like adding the final seasoning to a hearty stew before serving it. We older gardeners know the importance of timing and care, and this small step ensures your compost is at its absolute best when it hits your garden beds. Part 8. How to get free wood chips without breaking a sweat. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, this all sounds great, but where on earth am I going to get enough wood chips? And trust me, I've been there too, especially when hauling heavy bags isn't as easy as it used to be. But here's a simple trick that's worked like a charm for me over the years. The next time you hear a chainsaw buzzing somewhere in the neighborhood, don't ignore it. That sound usually means tree trimmers are nearby, and believe it or not, they're often looking for a place to unload their fresh chips. Just walk over, smile, and ask if they'd be willing to drop a load at your place. If your yard is easy to access and you make it convenient for them, most will be happy to do it for free. I've had entire truckloads delivered right to my driveway without spending a dime. Some gardeners even put up little signs near the road or sign up for free on chip drop websites. One good connection can set you up with enough wood chips for the whole season, and maybe even enough to share with a neighbor. Isn't it nice when a bit of old-fashioned friendliness brings something so useful right to your doorstep? It's just one more reason I love this gardening life. Part 9. A real compost story from my own backyard. Now let me take you behind the scenes a bit and share how I built my last compost pile right in my backyard, with nothing fancy, just what I had on hand. It's one thing to talk about methods, but it's another to see how it actually plays out, especially for us older folks who like things that are simple and doable. On the first day, I started by sifting through a pile of wood chips I had saved from a neighbor's tree trimming job. Then I gathered up a few garden stems, old tomato vines, soft sunflower stalks, that sort of thing, and mixed them with some fresh grass clippings from my last mow. I watered each layer and gave it a good turn with my fork, just enough to get everything cozy and damp. By the second day, I checked the temperature, and it had already hit 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 49 degrees Celsius. That's when I knew the pile was alive and cooking. I added more greens, 4 more bags of clippings, actually, mixing it all in again with fresh chips and browns. On the third day, it spiked up to 145 degrees Fahrenheit, 63 degrees Celsius, right on track. Every couple of days after that, I gave it a gentle turn, checked the heat, and smiled at the sweet, earthy smell that started to rise. By day 21, the pile had transformed, dark, rich, and smelling like a walk through the forest after a good rain. It's hard to put into words how satisfying that felt. At our age, we may not be lifting bags like we used to, but the joy of seeing something you nurtured come to life, it never gets old. At the end of the day, composting wood chips isn't just about gardening. It's about seeing potential where others see waste. It's about believing that with a little time and care, something rough and forgotten can turn into something beautiful and nourishing. And isn't that what we've learned through years in our gardens and in life itself? That good things come from patience, that small efforts done with heart grow into something much greater than we imagined. Whether it's a tomato plant, a flower bed, or a quiet afternoon spent tending a pile, we're part of something that gives back. So don't let that pile of wood chips sit forgotten. Let it be your next project. Let it be your gift to the soil, to the seasons ahead, and to the hands that will garden here long after we're gone. If this brought a little spark to your gardening spirit, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who could use a bit of garden wisdom, and most importantly, subscribe to Meaningful Living, where every week we dig into real stories, real soil, and real joy from one older gardener to another. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until we meet again, take care of your garden, and let your garden take care of you.